Hey trekkers, Tom here. We're going to talk about my canoeing trip to the Everglades. So back in 2018, we did a canoeing trip in the Everglades. I rented a canoe from the base rec center and just threw it onto the hood of my car and we drove down to the Everglades. We did this trip in November. I think it was Veterans Day weekend. The trip was planned to go over 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 2 nights of camping, but it didn't turn out the way we expected. And what do I mean by that is the canoeing trip was a little more difficult than I thought. For those of you who never canoed before, it is a little learning curve. I've done some rowing in the past, but one of the lessons learned from this trip was looking at understanding the tides and understanding currents and water flow. I definitely came prepared with looking at the tide, the map charts, and the various stuff with currents. I wasn't probably as familiar with it as I should have been, and I completely underestimated the strength of that current. One of the things we've noticed when we were paddling along in the rivers was how strong the current was. The first part of the trip, we ended up going the wrong direction, crossing this lake and not following the channel markers. That killed about a couple hours going the wrong way because we had to kind of backtrack to get to the right spot. Reading the maps was a little trickier than I thought it was. I have had some map experience with land nav and things of that realm, but navigation maps were a little trickier. Seeing how the shorelines can change with the tides, so things are a little unrecognizable reading the navigation map for water. Once we left the channel and started going up the river, we were pretty much going upstream, downstream. So we were fighting the current the entire way leaving the channel, the entire way, and I felt like we were going nowhere. We were synchronizing our strokes, but we weren't moving, so I would try to push harder, but that ended up pointing us in different directions, and Nikki was getting frustrated, just wanting to go a straight direction, but we just were not moving anywhere with our rowing. The current was very strong. There was no wind, which was nice, but the current was relentless and very exhausting. So anytime we got a chance to pull off to the side and take a break, we would. They gave a chance to give Arlo to take a little potty break too. As you might have seen some of the photos, so Arlo came along on our trip. So little lessons learned that. I should have probably had a proper harness for him. He just had his regular collar on around his neck. He was still a little puppy, so he pretty much slept for most of it between my legs on the ground. But there were points where he'd get up and start stretching around inside the boat, and he was trying to lean off the side and climb on the boat on top of across our bags. And it got me a little nervous because I didn't want him falling in the water, getting swallowed up by a croc, because Everglades are known for having crocodiles. Oddly enough, we didn't see any crocodiles, but we did see dolphins on the second day. And also a couple tourists on some boats passing by saw Arlo and just fell in love with him. Like, who doesn't fall in love with this dog? Plan of attack for this trip was to spend Friday getting to the first island, which was supposed to be Tiger Key, camp there, and then head up to Lopez River to a campsite down there for the second night, and then from Lopez River back to the Gulf City Visitor Center and load up and leave. However, the current was so difficult and strong, we ended up calling it after that first night. In fact, the first night, we didn't even get to the campsite we wanted to go to. Our intent was to go to Tiger Key Island. We ended up going to Indian Key, not the same site. And we were very close to our end destination, but when we were coming closer to the leaving the channel, going out towards the open water, the current was really strong and it got really choppy with the waves. I thought we were going to get capsized at one point. The water was getting very close to the rim of our boat and our boat was rocking back and forth. It definitely had me nervous, like, holy cow, this is the open water right here. This is the Gulf that we can get sucked into, so we got to be careful. But the current was pushing in, and we just ended up going southward towards Indian Key and camping the night there. However, though, after the next day, when we decided to just call it quits after that first night, on our way back, the current was in our favor, so it was smooth. We barely had the paddle going back. We just took that current all the way in. I think next time, if we ever do this trip again, we'll look at the current flows and probably start north, or take a shuttle to the northern section and then follow that current south where our car will be parked, so at the end we can just take it back. We didn't get to do any of the camping in the marshes at all, where it's on top of those platforms, which is what is unique for the Everglades. We just ended up camping on a beach area, which is fine. It was very reclusive, but probably wasn't the same experience of camping in the marsh areas. Another thing to note at is this trip, it being in the glades, a lot of water and these small keys. We thought it had no populations, no animals living out there whatsoever, but when we got the island we were at, littered with mosquitoes. We almost got eaten alive. We had bug nets that luckily we brought, threw them on our heads, sprayed ourselves as best as we could, but even the bug spray wouldn't keep them away. And then trying to sleep at night, we just hear the mosquitoes outside the tent just buzzing away, their high-pitched squeaks. And the next morning we just try to make our way away from the foliage and stay near the shore and eat our breakfast, but the mosquitoes are still relentless. Overall, a great second trip for our national park trails. I'm excited to see where these other trails can go, but I would definitely like to come back to the Everglades at some point. Definitely, the Everglades is massive and I want to see more parts to it. I think with better planning and more understanding now of what the park is like, I think we can have more of a successful trip in the future, planning out those different sites and understanding the currents and flows. One of the things I brought that I didn't need were shoes. Those suckers came off the moment we got into the canoe and pretty much had sandals on or water shoes. In fact, getting the boat into the water, or not even on the shore, my sandals got really muddy just because of how mucky the water was. So I was pretty much barefoot the entire time on the craft, and bring plenty of sunblock because the sun is relentless, and plenty of bug spray too for those campsites. Well, folks, that's all I have for this little trip. Nothing spectacular, not many things missing or needed. Thank you all for watching. Please like and subscribe down below if you want. And next time, enjoy the trails.